right, what's up, everyone? It's Zach, and today I'm here with a very special guest. I'm here with Michael Carrier. Michael, how are you doing today?
Hi, doing well, thank you.
Awesome, glad to hear it, and thank you for taking the time to be on the podcast today. So, for those of you listening, Michael is a fellow author. He has published 14 fiction books, all centered around his main character, Jack Handler, who is a homicide detective. He's also Michigan-based, just like me. So, that's a little bit about Michael and his work. But do you mind giving us a little background on yourself and what you're doing these days, all that good stuff?
Sure. I'm, I, I sold my business. I was in private security for a lot of years, like 30 years. I sold my business a number of years ago, and I didn't handle retirement well. I found right murder mysteries much more interesting. So that's what I've been doing. My principal character in all 15 books is a retired Chicago homicide detective by the name of Jack Handler. And he lives now, he was in Chicago for years. He has relocated and is living in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. So my stories all on Sugar Island, actually. So my stories all get started up there.
Perfect. And I think you mentioned this when we actually met, Michael, that the stories of Jack, it's a book series that you have all about him, but they're also able to read them as kind of individual stories as well, right?
Yeah, I recommend getting started with Murder on Sugar Island, which is actually my second book in the series. But
Okay.
it's the better one to start with because when Jack moved out of the big city, everything changed considerably. As long as when they get started, it's all right to start with Jack in the New York Death Mask, which was actually the first. But my readers, I find they find it handier if they start with Murder on Sugar Island. And so that is the one I recommend that people start with. And if they like that as much as most do, they'll be pretty much stuck in the series. Then you can go back and read Jack and the New York Death Mask or Superior Peril, or you can basically, once you've read Murder on Sugar Island, you can skip around anywhere in the series you really want to. The books are self-contained,
Hmm.
but I do recommend Murder on Sugar Island for just.
Okay. Perfect. And like you just mentioned, Michael, your books are self-contained. It always follows Jack, but they are self-contained books. What made you want to write your books versus having it, you have to read in order from book one all the way forward?
Well, not real sure, except I know it sort of irritates me
Okay.
if I'm taken into a series and I really can't move around in it. If something comes up in that series that I'm really interested in, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, that's why I strongly recommend starting with Murder on Sugar Island uh,
Hmm.
and move from there.
Okay. Perfect. And you mentioned you had your own business in private security. Did you find that during your writing process, some of your experiences or stories or things you encountered really helped with writing from that detective perspective of Jack Handler?
Absolutely. It would have. I can't imagine my having done it without that. There's a certain basis in reality that uh, I'm not saying I live the life, because my main
Hmm.
character Jack Handler kills a lot of people, and that was not my style. But I saw my way through that. I saw some of it go on, and it helps them uh, bring my stories are all plausible. I think that's what it does. Is it grounds them. If you read one of my books, there's going to be nothing in that book that doesn't smack of plausibility. So that's what I strive for.
I really like that. I think it's cool that there is that plausibility factor in your work. It's always cool to read maybe fantasy, fictitious books, mystery series, and such. But I think when there's that like realism to it, it really just makes it seem more impactful, I guess you could say.
It makes it easier to write for me
Okay.
if I can believe what I'm writing.
Okay. And now you mentioned the believability with writing, and you've written a whole series with Jack Handler. How have you been able to stay kind of, I guess, with the reading process? How have you been able to write so many books following one character and like still stay fresh with your ideas?
I've actually, I'm working into three series.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the plural of that is, but I have three series.
Okay.
The first one is the Getting to Know Jack, and there are 7 books in that series, and that's critical uh, to begin. Uh, Murder on Sugar Island. I go back to that. The second book in that series.
Hmm.
Getting to know Jack is critical, uh, so that a person really knows what they can expect from him. Well, once I finished the first 7 books, I moved into the second series, which is Jack's Justice. Now, the nuts and bolts of that is that Jack, he doesn't change one bit. He is the same guy in book one of series one as he will be however long I write these. But Jack's Justice, uh, the reader begins to see just exactly how all of Jack's the way Jack thinks, how everything is possible and even plausible, but you get to see Jack being Jack, and he does have a pretty much a unique way of solving problems, and people do tend to die around him. But the
Mm.
third series is even more fun, and I just published that the first book of that series. It's To China with Love, and I think I think the kitchen sink gets smashed in that series. There's
Okay.
going to be a little bit more go on, but you're ready for
Okay. Perfect. That's really exciting. And congratulations on just publishing that one.
it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So, Michael, when you were working in private security, before you started writing the Jack Handler books, were you still doing sort of writing or even just like outlining some of these ideas for books, or was that really all spurring from after you retired?
I I really I really couldn't write them while I owned the business. It
Okay.
wouldn't have been ethical, and I just had too much going on. I was really a very busy guy, like very busy. I had a lot of major contracts. I don't. I'm really not at liberty to discuss
Sure.
that in any kind of detail, but I have been contracted approximately 100 times uh, by federal agencies. And,
Wow.
I had a lot of fun doing that, and I definitely don't I don't give anything away. I don't get into any details on that.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. And now in college, back when you were a student, you studied journalism, correct?
I was going to be a journalist. Yes, that was my intention,
Okay.
and that's kind of I'm I'm glad you brought that up because it's kind of a funny story behind that. But I had my journalism professor took a liking to me,
Okay.
and he's and he called me in after class or asked me in after class and said, "Michael, I really like your work. I really think you should get engaged." I was a sophomore in college, and I really think you should get engaged in that now and not wait until you've graduated. And so he hired me, and I worked for him for uh, over a year. And I looked around me, and none of these folks were making any money. And I
Mm.
thought, I'm going to have a hard time raising a family like this. And so uh, I went to grad school, and then I started a business, a private security firm. And I
Okay.
did okay with that.
Yeah.
I was very close to 30 years, or around 30 years. I had my own business.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it sounds like you've done really well for yourself, and it's kind of cool to hear how you were going to be a journalist, and then you kind of pivoted out to your own business of private security, but now you're back into that writing, so it's kind of like life coming full circle a bit.
A little bit. Yep. What I To further answer your question a little more detail is I actually did write 7 books prior to my starting my Jack Handler series, and
Okay,
they were at some point they might get published. I published one and then pulled it off. Uh, it's totally nonfiction, and
okay,
and that is a little. Uh, my Jack Handler series are all fiction.
yep,
There's very plausible, but they're all fiction. But the first 7 books were nonfiction,
okay,
and I think that before I actually put them out there, I would really want to take a good, long, hard look at what's going into them.
got it.
I don't want to end up in court. Put it that way.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. Always want to make sure you have all your bases covered.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah. So, Michael, going back to when you were a student studying journalism, I know that in one of your courses, your professor assigned the class to write their own obituary. And on that assignment, you wrote that when you turned 50, you would begin writing fiction. Did that actually happen exactly how you wrote it? Like when you were 50 or before then, is that when you first started?
It you know it probably was close.
Okay.
I think I might have been. I think I really haven't thought about that, but that is just about the way it went down. I might have been 55. That could very well have
Okay.
been, because I think when I was 50, I was altogether too busy. But that's when I started writing that first series. That's
Okay.
interesting. Interesting you brought that up.
Yeah. So I'm curious, Michael, like as a college student, what made you write specifically that by the time you turned 50 years old, you would begin writing fiction? What made you write that in that moment?
I always I've always wanted to be a writer, and I've had a lot of fun doing it because it just seems to come pretty much natural to me. I have a good
Hmm.
imagination, I think. And I think that may have been part of what made me successful in business, is that attribute. But I can't really tell you, except ever since I was a small kid, I did a lot of writing, and I had a lot of fun doing it. And I don't know, but probably picked up some talents at it. And but it just seemed like something that I would really like to do. I guess I saw pretty early on that I would never be able to build a career out of it, and I doubt that I could have. It just being in business seemed more natural to me,
Hmm.
more of a hands-on problem solving. Journalists are great. If a good journalist, I really take my hat off to them if they do the job the way it's supposed to be done. It's admirable, and it's a tough job. Uh, so I think I totally respected that aspect of it.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm curious, Michael. So, someone like myself, I'm 26 right now. I've written and published a few short books of my own, and I know some other people around my age or even younger who are aspiring authors or just love writing and have a major passion for it. How should you balance, I guess, as a young author, like thinking about your career? Is it something that it's like, you should get that regular job and work that, 9 to 5 job and then write in your free time and try to publish books that way, or do you think it's something that if it's truly something you love and you're passionate about, you should just go all in for it?
Oh, that is a good question. Um, I felt, I felt at some point, I believe at some point, you have to make the commitment.
Okay.
But I don't think it hurts a thing to take notes
Yeah.
as you go along. Uh, I think if a person had a path clear, uh, I definitely would have done that had I seen those around me make a living at it. And I just saw that's not what I saw,
Right.
and I did not. And it's not been that easy, except I really didn't need. Once I started writing and publishing, it wasn't because I was feeding a family and educating them or buying houses or whatever.
Right.
At that point in my life, I could put myself into it and do it. And it's only been the last few years that I've made any money doing it. So
Mm.
I don't. It's a tough one to advise a person aspiring to be a writer.
Yeah.
It's a tough one. Uh, I'm a much better salesman than I am anything else, and that's how I did it, and that's how I got started doing it. Is I went out and I sold my books.
Yeah.
I actually am booked uh, for appearances from well, this year I was from I don't know, I think the middle of February, and I will have been booked every weekend. I've had a couple off, uh, mostly by accidents, but I booked all the way through the middle of December, and I'm
Wow.
eagerly awaiting because I have a new book I want to get finished. But that book will be I have like 2 months. Again, I'm starting up in February.
Okay.
The marketing end of it comes easier for me than uh, writing and marketing. Uh, but during the course of the year,
Hmm.
it really drains me. I
Yeah.
will admit to have to get myself out there as much as I do, but I don't see another way to do it.
That makes sense. Okay. And Michael, you just mentioned that really it's only been the last few years that you started seeing, profitable, just making, money from your writing and your series and everything. How long have you been writing? How long has that journey been?
Uh, my first book, my first Jack Handler murder mystery,
Hmm.
I wrote in 2011.
Okay.
So, well, I actually probably 2009 to 2011. I
Okay.
published it in 2011. Then I've averaged right around one a year.
Okay.
Since.
Okay. Got it. So 2011, and then within the last few years is when you've seen more of the money coming in from it, making money from your writing. My question for you is like, how did you stay motivated? Or I guess is it you kind of mentioned you're in a different place in your life when you started writing where you're not trying to, support a family, buy houses, things like that. Was it never about the money? It was just for the love of writing and telling Jack's story, or was it tough to kind of stay motivated when you're seeing like, oh, I'm not maybe as successful as I want to be or know I can be?
It was pure motivation generated from within.
Okay.
I never saw a dollar sign at the end of it. That wasn't a target. Uh, but that's what motivates me. I built
Yeah.
my security firm virtually the same way. As I started with nothing and just did it. And so it took me a few years in marketing the books to get around to the point where I began to say, "Hey, I think I see a way to do this." And
Yeah.
I made. I have to tell you, the mistakes I made were many, uh, but none of them discouraged me. I just didn't get discouraged.
That's good. That's good. Do you mind me asking what some of those mistakes that you made along the way were?
Oh my word! I thought I would do well Uh, I thought I would do well, and the way I started out is booking book signings in libraries and bookstores,
Okay.
and that was it was all right. I met some great people and sold some books and had some fun, but I started looking at it and I'm thinking, man, this is not going to work the way I would like it to.
Yeah.
And uh, so what I did is I just started looking for other possibilities, and started I found it to be a numbers game. The more people I could talk to, the more books I would sell. And so that's what I look for is I look for venues where I could talk to a lot of people, and that worked pretty well. And so that's what I go after, and I'm able to get something booked every weekend. And if I can talk to uh, a relatively large number of people, and those people, I even went. One of the venues I booked was a home builders show.
Hmm.
Now, what does that have to do with murder mysteries? It
Not
had not.
much.
Well, I didn't sell any books there either,
Okay.
and it cost me a ton of money. Uh, but I still made some contacts and sold some books. I think the most important thing for me is talking to people, a lot of people.
Hmm.
So that's what I've been. That's what I recommend. If there's, if you write a book and you want to sell it and you don't have, someone signing you up for a movie contract, I'd say find groups of people and talk to them. It just if you do it long enough, it works.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. How long have you been doing the venues? How many years has it been that you've been going
Oh
to
gosh,
those?
I started right off
Okay.
with my very first book. I had some fun. I tend to operate outside the box, and you're the first person that I've ever told this to. But you asked the question, I'll answer it. I
Yeah.
started with my book was Jack and the New York Death Mask. Well, I went I lived in New York for a number of years. I
Okay.
was a fellow at New York University of History, actually, and I thought, what a great place to set the series. And so when I started writing it, my very first book was Jack and the New York Death Mask, and I can't get into a lot of details, but that uh, it upset a lot of people, and
Okay.
some people that it was after 9/11,
Okay.
uh, and New York was not a great. It was not a welcome sight to base a story like mine
Yeah.
or a series like mine. But what I did is I went to BEA Book Expo America. It's a big show, book show, and tried to make contacts there. That was okay. I did not. I wasn't associated with the show itself, so I didn't. They didn't provide me a venue, but I still met a lot of writers and talked to a lot of people. But I soon found that other venues would work better for me. So
Okay.
that's when I started. But that was back in 2011, and
Okay.
it's only been the last, oh gosh, maybe 3 years. I think that I've started. I've started to. I can't say I'm successful. I don't have a movie. That's really what I would like to have. Is I'd like to have a movie deal.
Yeah, I was actually gonna ask you that. Like, so a movie deal that is that kind of like the end goal or a big goal of yours?
It's a big goal. Yes, that would turn me into a uh, relatively successful regional author.
Mm-hmm.
It would provide me the ground to operate on where I could sell books anywhere.
Yeah.
And I really would like to be able to do that.
Okay. Now, out of curiosity, are you thinking like a movie would be the best way to tell Jack's story, or have you thought about like a TV series even?
Well, they're virtually the same these days, I think.
Sure.
When I say movie, Amazon with their Prime
Yep.
and these other other corporations. I'm not. I'm talking to. Actually, I'm talking to 5 different companies right now. Not every day of the week, but I still have. I think if one of them picked up on it, wanted to invest in it, they'd find Jack is a very compelling character.
Yeah.
That's just. I think it would work its well into a streaming series like an Amazon series or
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome if, I'll say when that happens and when Jack does get his own series or movie, would that be something that you would want to be heavily involved with, Michael? Like, would you want to be, maybe on the set occasionally helping, making sure that everything's being represented correctly? Or would it be more so like, it'd just be awesome to give the rights to someone and let them direct and be creative and everything as long as they're using the source material?
I think I would. I I think I would like to be helpful.
Okay.
I think I would like to be considered helpful.
Yeah.
There's others out there. Michael Connolly. Oh my gosh, that guy he did such a great job with his Harry Bosch series. He well, I'm not going to tell his story, but uh, he just did a very good job. As I understand it, I don't know all the details, but as I understand, I met him in New York a number of years ago, and I believe he ended up having to buy the rights to his own book back
Wow.
because he had some issues with the production of it, and then Amazon took it over and did a great job. But I
Hmm.
think he kept very close to the process. I don't know if I would want to do that or not. But
Yeah.
he's a journalist. That's what he is, or how he started out for sure. He just does
Okay.
a great job with his murder mysteries.
Yeah. That's awesome. And now you've mentioned, Michael, how the Jack Handler series, that it's plausible. So you did draw, some experiences or inspiration from your career in private security. And it even sounds like kind of how you mentioned when you first started writing and maybe marketing and going to these venues, you started that career kind of similar to how you started your own business. So I guess I'm just curious, like from doing both your own business and now being an author, do you see a lot of like lessons that you learned from starting your own business that's helped you with this process now?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so. And they don't. Uh, the individual details of doing one and then the other probably don't relate, but the mindset that you go into it with does. Because when I started my security business, there was no way I would ever fail at it. I just would not let that happen, and I worked a lot, and it was a number of years before I saw any success with that, and then finally it came because I think the one of the tricks is, and I don't know, I'm not a great businessman. I can't say that I am, but I think if you believe in yourself and you're willing to do what it is going to take to be successful, I think this country gives you gives you the opportunity to make it happen. And I think that's the great thing. I don't know if I could have ever been successful, uh, in Europe or any place else. America is just uh, interesting in that respect in the opportunities that it affords. But I
Yeah.
think it's mostly the mindset that at least a person like me, the mindset you go into the project with, and to yourself you're willing to pour out.
Where did that mindset come from for you? Is that something that's always been a part of you, or did you have to practice and hone in that mindset that you have?
I don't really know that. I know my father was an endless worker, and my mother was a hard worker, and we just saw that in our house. That and my dad did well. I think you ask good questions. I
Thank
think
you.
I did learn that from my parents. I think I really did, because my dad always had a job, but he had a business on the side, and he uh, built that business up and was very successful at it. But I didn't see a lot of him. He was always working.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Kind of as you grew up and saw your parents working hard, it kind of, whether you realize it or not, it rubbed off on you. And then that's something that kind of
Yeah,
gave you that mindset.
I think that had a lot to do with it.
Okay. I think that's great. And it's a really good mindset to have. And I think just knowing that anything's possible and putting in the work. I mean, I think it's safe to say that anything worthwhile isn't necessarily going to be easy. You have to put in the work, and I think that that's sometimes what people get scared away from because of the time that they have to put in or the level of work or commitment to accomplish their goals. But it's important to put in that time, and like you said, the opportunities should be there.
And being willing to make the mistakes and learn from them.
Yeah,
I think that's also very, very important, because you can't. I don't. You just simply can't do everything right. You're going to make mistakes. Just be willing to accept that fact, and try not to make them twice.
did you have to learn to accept your mistakes throughout this process, or when you first started making those mistakes, was it tough for you to be like, oh man, I shouldn't have made that mistake, or that was silly?
I don't really know the answer to that.
Okay.
If, uh, I I just didn't. I just never had it in me to give up. I
Okay.
think that might be it. I
Yeah.
think it could have been easy to give up, but it just never seemed an acceptable approach to life. So I preferred to say, "Oh man, this isn't working at all. I'm going to do something different." I think that's what moved me from journalism to start a business, is I could
Right.
see it wasn't going to work for me.
Yeah.
So,
Just kind of adapting.
yeah, adapting. Yeah,
Yep.
but
Perfect.
that
So,
a lot to it.
yeah. Now, Michael, when you first started writing the Jack Handler series, you said like maybe 2009 is when you started writing that. Do you think that if 2009 Michael could see what you've accomplished and what you're doing now, would you be surprised, or would you be like, yeah, I always knew I had that in me, and this is where I knew I could get?
That's a good question. I don't have a good answer to that. I just I knew I would get somewhere. I
Hmm.
just didn't know where that would be. And but my character, the crazy thing about my character, I never changed my character. My Jack Handler guy, he is exactly the same person as he was when I first started out. So even though I undoubtedly made some marketing mistakes and my approach to it. So I did. I'm sure I learned as I went along. But the only thing that changed in that process was uh, my preparing my readers uh, to think about Jack the way they were going to need to or want to,
Okay.
because they did a lot of learning. I don't worry now. I'm not concerned uh, about the way they apprehend my character, because if they've read more than a few of my books, they're going to know what to expect from Jack. So
Yeah.
I don't even go there now. And with the latest series, the third series that I'm just starting, Jack Unchained, uh, uh, they're ready for something radical to
Okay.
happen.
Okay. Awesome. That's really exciting. And it sounds like definitely a good development of Jack as a character. And, that leads me to the question of when you think of big series or, just whether it's TV, books, movies, whatever, you need to have a character. And I think a lot of something about the name, like the name of your protagonist is extremely important and can honestly have more impact than maybe someone listening might realize. Was there any inspiration behind the name Jack Handler, or did that just come to you and you're like, "Yeah, that's a good name. I'm gonna go with that."
Well, I had a one of my clients.
Yeah.
His first name was Jack. His last name was not Handler, but I
Okay.
won't get into a lot of detail about him. But he had a very direct way of solving problems.
Okay.
But right, I had he was one of my clients, and I totally respected him. But I thought the name, I changed the last name. He I don't even know if he's still alive, but
Okay.
if he is, he might recognize himself. I have to say my books are all fiction,
Yep.
and his last name was certainly not Handler.
Okay. Got
But
it.
yeah, I did. There was a guy out there running around that tended to solve problems in a very direct way.
Okay. Got it. And now, did Handler come from anything, or did you make that up and thought it sounded good with Jack?
I thought it sounded good with Jack.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, and the fact, just the word handler, uh, a direct way of dealing,
Yeah.
and that's pretty much what I was thinking when I came up with that name.
I love it. It's a really good name, and I feel like the name itself, it kind of grips you, and you're like, Jack Handler, homicide detective. That's really interesting. You kind of get your interest piqued by that.
Yeah, that's how I looked at it.
Awesome. Michael, do you mind me asking, like, could you explain a little bit like your writing process when it comes to writing the Jack Handler books?
Yeah, I what I like to do is I like to know where I'm going with it,
Okay.
and I'm not so sure everyone does it like this, but I'm not a out of the box guy. I didn't study, writing. I've had courses in creative writing, but that wasn't what I did for my for the way I earned money. I pretty much uh, I like to have my conclusion first.
Okay.
I like to know exactly where I'm going with it and write the conclusion, and then get there. I can change it as I progress, but I don't want to be surprising myself with the story. The narrative, of course, develops as it goes along, and I probably use more dialogue than a lot of writers do. But again, I'm not out of any box. I am going to do it the way I want to do it, and but I do know where I'm going when I start. So I think
Okay.
that might be. Yeah, I don't know if I could recommend that to someone else who's writing fiction, but I just
Hmm.
think it's a good idea.
Yeah. So kind of like you said, come up with your conclusion and then almost like work from there.
Yeah, yeah, pretty
Okay.
much.
I like that. That's a really good idea, and that's something that I think it kind of helps because I think even just from my experience writing um, academically as well, it's like if you start at the beginning, you don't always know where you're going to end up or where to take it or when to stop. So having that kind of established endpoint and just focusing on how to get there, I think could be
Yeah,
helpful.
exactly. Yep.
Okay, perfect. And you said that you have been pretty much doing like one book a year.
That's how it's turned out.
Okay.
Uh, um, my my latest is To China with Love,
Yep.
and that I was a full 2 years on.
Okay.
There's a backstory to why it took so long, and at some point I'll probably tell that backstory, but this wouldn't be the time yet.
Okay.
But I'm just happy to have that done. I don't think I never my wife does not even know what I'm writing until it's finished. So
Really?
no, she likes to be surprised, and she is. And I don't tell anyone what my latest book is going to be. Uh, it'll be um, when it's finished. I like to surprise people, and I
Wow.
think I do that. So my newest book, I'm not going to talk about, except I think if I were to guess completion, I would be guessing the spring, uh, probably late spring. That's
Okay.
what I'm thinking.
Got
But we'll
it.
see. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, we will see indeed. One question that I I wanted to ask you specifically that I just found really interesting, and maybe it's more of a marketing question, is um, I've had the opportunity to meet quite a few different authors and just follow the journeys of authors. And I've seen like, custom bookmarks and everything, but it's usually just, a bookmark for the book itself. I noticed that you have bookmarks that have the whole Jack Handler series and contact information and everything. What made you create those bookmarks? Like, did something inspire that, or did you just think of that on your own?
Well, yeah, I came up with that, and you hit it on the nose. It is marketing.
Yeah.
It is how I engage people to talk to me. If I can get them to make eye contact with me, uh, I'm a third of the way home. So
Okay.
that's what that bookmark does. It gives me the road in the conversation, and that's what I'm after.
Okay. Perfect. And then that kind of leads into your newsletter that you have.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that?
Oh gosh, I think that's probably 2.5, 3 years.
Okay.
And that would be one thing I would like. I would like um, people to hear this if they want to find out what I'm up to. That is a good way to do it. Is to just send me an email.
Okay.
May I leave my email address?
Yeah, of course.
All right, that Zach is Mike dot John spelled Jon
Okay.
dot carrier, Mike dot John dot carrier at gmail.com. And if a person fires off an email to me and requests receiving that newsletter, I go through a company, and this might be of interest to your other writers as well. I think it's very important to protect the anonymity of, uh, of, of your readers. So what I do is I go through a company called, well, it's a company, I don't even really want to give that out.
Sure.
But there are a few companies out there that will do emails and protect, or email newsletters, emailings, and protect the anonymity of the subscribers. So I
Hmm.
have a professional do that, and I know he's a professional. He's well known in the business world, and the last thing that he would do is, and he does it for a lot of people, is he would not give out an email list, and that's what I want to do, is protect my readers. But if any of your listeners would like to receive the newsletter, find out where I'm going to be, stop and visit me at some one of my book signings or venues or whatever it happens to be. It would be great, and it touches you, touches them, gets them introduced to my website. One of the nice things you can do through that newsletter is you can save money. Amazon sells the books for uh, X number of dollars.
Hmm.
Well, at my venues, I sell them for a little less, uh, but I have package deals through that newsletter where you can buy. Right now, it's 7 books for the price of 5, and you
Hmm.
can do that through the newsletter. So I
Okay.
appreciate that little time to point that out.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate you pointing that out. And to anyone listening, I will also put all of Michael's information in the description of this episode. So you can go down there, find his email address, so you can reach out, information on the newsletter, on his website. Those good places to check out his work and everything. But that's really cool. I think it's awesome that you have that newsletter going, and really important, like you said, to keep the anonymity of your subscribers. I think that that's something that's very important, and
Absolutely. Yep.
I think the subscribers appreciate as well. Perfect. Now, you mentioned that at your venues you sell your books, and Amazon also has them as well. Um, do you sell them like directly on your website, or is it just Amazon and at your venues?
Um, Largely through the venues
Okay.
and through Amazon. Amazon sells a lot. There's quite a few bookstores that carry them, and that number is growing. And that's one of the things the movies a good movie
Hmm.
would create as a marketing uh, platform there. But you can order them over the website. You can order them through the newsletter, and even through the newsletter, a person can take advantage of that package pricing.
Awesome. Yeah, that's very good to know. And I mean, that's a really good deal on books. So definitely to anyone listening who's interested, I think you should definitely try to check out that offer, especially as the holidays are approaching and stuff. You know, could be a great gift to someone that is a reader in your life or even to yourself.
Absolutely.
Awesome. I guess the last one of the last questions that I have for you is we kind of touched on a little bit, you know, having the balance between pursuing writing or being an author and, you know, being able to make money and support your life and everything for it. So, not necessarily on that regard, but do you have any advice for any aspiring authors out there?
I think it would be if you are a writer and you enjoy writing, it would be very difficult to prevent you from doing it. And I would just say do it, uh, and find a way to market it. If you're game to do that, find a way to market it and pursue it. But if it's in your blood, I don't I cannot imagine me not writing. Just put
Mm,
it that way. It was something that I don't think I could have avoided in my life. Uh, it, I think it just has to come pretty much natural to you. That's how I
mhm,
view it. But I think Zach, everybody is different. Everyone has a little different approach to it. I learned right off that I was not going to be able uh, to make the kind of money that I was going to need, uh,
mhm.
and so I moved on. I didn't get bitter. I just moved on.
Yeah. And now here you are coming back to it and, you know,
Sure,
seeing all the success with Jack Handler. And I think that that's awesome.
I'm having fun.
And that's what's important, right? At the end of the day, you're
Oh
having
gosh,
fun.
for sure it is.
Yeah. So I mean, I think like Michael was saying, you know, if you have a love for writing, like you'll kind of know, you'll have it kind of come from within, and you know, just have fun with it, right? Just that's what
It's
we write for, to have fun and to tell stories and to entertain others and to connect with people. So don't lose that, you know, in the journey.
and that describes it well. It is a journey.
Yeah,
It definitely is.
it is for sure. Awesome. Well, Michael, as we wrap things up, to anyone listening, as we discussed a few minutes ago, all of Michael's information is going to be in the description of the episode, his email address included. So reach out to subscribe to the newsletter, or if you know heard Michael on this podcast and just want to, you know, say hello or ask him questions about his books or you know his writing process, I'm sure he'd be happy to connect and exchange emails that way. We'll put all that contact information and where you can find the Jack Handler series books to purchase as well in the description of that episode. But Michael, is there any like last thoughts or words that you want to leave the listeners with?
Only that I appreciate the way you handled this. You're very patient with me, Zach, and it's very much appreciated.
Yeah, of course. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for taking the time to be a part of this and for sharing a bit about your story and also Jack's story. It's been a really great conversation. And as an author myself, it's just been a great learning experience to learn from you and to hear the successes that you've had. And I'm excited to continue to see where Jack's journey takes him. And I'm crossing my fingers and hopeful for the day that we see Jack on the big screen.
Thank you, Zach.
Of course. All right, Michael, you take care.
Yep, back at you.
Thanks. Bye.